Good evening. I'm Mark Broussard. I'm an orthopedic surgeon at Anne Arundel Medical Center in Orthopedic and Sports Medicine. I am the physician leader for the Future Doctors organization in the Future Human Health and Medicine organization. Welcome to our Teen Mental Health Night, brought to you by the Future Human Health and Medicine organization and Future Doctors organizations. These are organizations that are based in Annapolis, Maryland, that are nonprofit, that is a bunch of community students, aspiring physicians and healthcare professionals working toward health equity. Our mission statement is to enhance inclusivity and diversity in the advancement of human health and medicine. Our vision statement is to achieve health equity through student empowerment, opportunity, training, mentorship, and career development. The organization was founded in 2012 by Paxton Pagnelli and has provided opportunities to over 700 students to be involved with healthcare professionals. Tonight's live stream is a continuation of our commitment to provide resources and information regarding teen mental health. We hosted an in-person event in Severna Park High School in January of 2020 that was well received. I know I learned a lot as the father of 3 daughters. Tonight's event is about providing up-to-date and useful information for our teens and the teens' families. That is a very important topic. Any questions will be submitted anonymously to ensure confidentiality. The number will be posted on the screen, but it is 443-579-5596. You text any questions to that number anonymously. Tonight's topic, teen mental health, has certainly become a crisis in the United States. There's an estimated 20% of teens suffer from some type of mental illness, but only 4% of our total healthcare budget is spent on mental health. According to the Mental Health of America, the prevalence of major depressive episodes over the past year have increased from 8.6% to 13% for teens aged 12 to 17. The percentage of youth with depression who did not receive mental health treatment is estimated to be about 61%. From 2007 to 2017, suicides amongst ages 10 to 24 has increased 56%. So as you can see, this is a very important and timely subject, and we'd like to get you the most up-to-date and current information. We will begin tonight with our host and teen advocate, Mallory Snodgrass.
Thank you, Dr. Broussard. Hi, everyone. My name is Mallory. I am 18 years old, right here from Annapolis, Maryland, and I recently just graduated from Broadneck High School, where I had the pleasure of learning a lot about mental health advocacy in our county and state and even country at large. I have had the pleasure of participating with the National Eating Disorders Association, the Eating Disorders Coalition, and several other youth advocacy programs right here in our county. I had the pleasure of my senior year of working on Anne Arundel County's Teen Mental Health Advisory, where we sat with the superintendent and other members of the mental health task force that we have for our students. I'm incredibly honored to be here tonight. I am interested in this type of advocacy because of treatment that I've received myself, and someone that has experienced mental illness and knows what kind of help to receive. There's still stuff that I'm learning every day. So if I can use my voice in some way or another to perhaps help those who also need that help, that is something that I am happy to do. We are honored tonight to have 2 wonderful specialists on our panel, and we will first hear from LaToya Congolo.
Thank you, Mallory. Hi, everyone. My name is LaToya Congolo, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and licensed clinical drug and alcohol counselor. I'm also the co-owner of Work-Life Behavioral Health and Professional Training located in Glen Burnie, Maryland. We offer outpatient counseling services to children, adolescents, and adults, as well as families in the areas of mental health and substance use disorders. We also have a nurse practitioner on site who provides Suboxone maintenance and medications for various mental health disorders. So, and also I'm a mother of a teen, so this is a topic that's very important to me. So I'm much like many of you who are watching tonight. So I appreciate being a part of this, and I'm looking forward to this wonderful event. So thank you, Mallory.
Hi, I'm Denise Courtney, and I am a licensed clinical social worker, both in Maryland and in the District of Columbia. I have a practice in Annapolis. We're not really physically there right now. We're all doing virtual. And I've spent a big part of my career working with teens, and I consulted with the school system in Atlanta doing teen suicide prevention. And I now do a lot of my work with adolescent girls and young women, both in DC and in Annapolis.
Thank you and welcome to the three panelists. We'd like to start tonight. This is all going to be based on questions from the audience. We're going to provide the number to you again, where you could ask your questions. It's all text and it's all anonymous. So if you just text 443-579-5596, your question, we will ask our panelists. And if there's a specific panelist you want to ask that question to, or all three of them, that's fine. We're going to start off with a few questions that we have for the panelists just to get things started. But we encourage you to submit your questions at this time, and we will ask them during this session. Our first question is going to be for all the panelists. And basically, why is teen mental health reaching crisis levels in some areas of the country? And what are the factors that are causing this? We start with Toya.
Oh, sure. So, well, I can tell you in my experience, I would say maybe the last several months, I have seen two issues that are impacting our teens right now. One is the pandemic. A lot of teens are experiencing loneliness, isolation. They're disconnected from their friends. It's rather frustrating for them. It's causing excessive worry. But in addition to that, our teens are also, involved in the media heavily. And, they're seeing a lot of media attention around racism and injustice in our society. And a lot of teens are actually learning things that they had no idea about. So they're also feeling confused and worried and uncertain about what the future holds for our society. And they're also looking to adults for us to give them answers and support, because they're really confused about what's going on now. And a lot of us adults are grappling with, how do we best support our kids through these issues? How do we have these conversations? So I think for all of us, we're all struggling with this, but because of where teens are emotionally and mentally, it's especially difficult for them to deal with those two, what I call crises that we're dealing with today.
Thank you. Denise?
Absolutely. I agree with Latoya. I'm seeing the same thing. I think we're seeing an intersection of two dramatically important things that are impacting our kids. And as parents, it's so important for us to be able to help them. I think taking the camera back a little bit and looking back a bit, I think a lot of this increase we've seen has been over, as you said, Dr. Broussard, since the early 2000s. And some of the statistics that I know are that, 50% of teens had phones in 2007. Now it's 75%. And most of the statistics that we see in terms of increased depression and anxiety and so on have gone up proportion to the amount of social media and smartphone use. And some of this, I think, even I see in my practice, I'm sure all of you do, is the decrease in sleep, the decrease in real interactions, the decrease in exercise, the decrease in connection with nature. Kids are just less independent and spending a lot of their time on social media and smartphones. And I think let me add though, I want to be careful about not saying causality, but correlation. But there's just a lot of strong evidence about how that is the single biggest factor since the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mallory, from the team perspective?
Absolutely. I like what both Latoya said about what's happening right now, and Denise, in the last few years, I think that certainly technology and our world surroundings have had a big, have been playing a big role in the mental health crisis. I think that also for teens, oftentimes we either ourselves push our issues under the rug, whether it's due to stigma or feeling overwhelmed in general. But because so many teens face these issues, it's hard to feel, as much as you can feel alone sometimes, it's hard to feel as if your problems are important. So it's hard to speak up and really voice what it is you're feeling, especially in times like right now.
Second question, what type of pressures are teens facing today that might be different from past generations? I know my kids always tell me that I don't understand today's environment and what's happening is different than when I was growing up. So we'll start with Denise on this one.
Well, certainly, again, not to overdo this, but I think the social media, I mean, absolutely, we did not grow up with that. And so we can't firsthand, we can observe it in all of the teens, but we can't firsthand know what that's about. As I frequently say to my clients, you know, when something would happen or something that you sort of learned a lesson, really your small bubble knew about it, but it didn't go viral. Right. And it didn't stick with you out there forever. So I think the pressures of what that means, we can't really appreciate what they're going through in that regard. I also think since the recession, I think this is a group of kids who are looking at an uncertain future in terms of what does that mean? And especially now with the pandemic, that, just as immediate as, am I going to go to college, to will I get a job, or so I think that is something that we can't quite relate to. And as we all know with the pandemic, I was thinking about, my parents going through the war and my grandparents going through the Great Depression. The one difference was they didn't have anything and they were on rations, but they got together with their friends and shared what they did have. And we cannot get together right now. Yeah. And that is a tremendous problem. That we also, the pandemic is affecting each developmental stage differently. And so it's really hard to imagine what our kids are going through right now.
Yeah. LaToya?
Yeah, I definitely agree with Denise. We have to keep in mind that, our kids are very sensitive to loaded images, and, what they're seeing on social media affects their mood. It affects how they look at themselves. They often make comparisons with, other people in their lives. And, I'm not living my best life. This person, looks so much happier than I am. And now that's fueling their depression and anxiety. They're not feeling like they measure up, which is affecting their self-esteem. So all of these feelings and emotions intertwined are heightening the anxiety and the depression that kids are experiencing. And I mean, I even see it in adults, but I see it especially in teens with the comparing themselves to other people and not feeling that they are as good or they are as adequate as, other people that they're watching on social media who are living these amazing lives. And they develop this narrative in their mind that, they're not as good.
Yeah. Mallory?
I agree that social media definitely plays a big role, especially in regards to expectations and comparisons that we have in our own peer group. I also think that expectations in general, whether it's on the internet or at home or in the classroom, play a big role in stress that becomes something much greater, whether it's anxiety or depression or anything like that. So the expectations that arise from social media and other environments as well that can become toxic are pretty hard. And that's not to say that in times before our generation, those pressures didn't exist. It's just on a different playing field now. So it's not better or worse than another time, but it's a pressure cooker for sure.
Okay. I just want to jump in here because Mallory just triggered something in me that I thought about. But when I was in middle school, I was severely bullied, and I had a lot of issues with my peers, and I acted out. It was an awful experience that I would never want to relive. You couldn't pay me $10 million to relive that experience. However, I think that the reason why I may have been able to overcome the challenges of those middle school years is the fact that there was not social media. The fact that this reputation, this bullying behavior did not follow me to high school and college. It allowed me to reinvent myself and just get away from that experience, heal from that trauma without it following me. And unfortunately, with social media, it doesn't allow the kids to be able to remove themselves from those people who have harmed them emotionally. And it only just, it triggers and it fuels it, and it actually causes them to re-experience that trauma over and over and over again. So, I feel for the kids who are dealing with social media and this online, the cyberbullying, because it's devastating. I can't imagine having to deal with that year after year. So.
The next question is going to be, what are some of the coping mechanisms that teens could use? And I'm going to preface this by saying we have parents that are viewing this tonight, and with the COVID and everything else, the mental health issues are also extending to adults. And, all the numbers show that it's going through the roof as far as that goes. So when we talk about coping mechanisms, it's not just for the teens, this is going to be for adults. So for the parents listening too, these are going to be some useful information here. So we'll start with LaToya on that one. What are some of the coping mechanisms we could do?
Well, I think that, I like to call them the three C's. And I didn't invent this. I got this from a wonderful psychiatrist many years ago. The first thing is that we need connectedness. Our kids need to feel safe. They need to feel secure. They need to feel that they have someone that they can talk to, that, can provide an outlet for them. Whether it be family members, friends, any support system that can allow them, to just offload their feelings and, just to be able to express their emotions. The other, which is a little tricky right now, is community. Having a purpose, being connected to community, doing something that drives your passion, that, enhances your self-esteem. Having that outlet is critical, especially when we're talking about teenagers. And the other is conversations. Just being open to, having conversations about your feelings. You're not being judged. Any adult. I'm a parent of a teenager. Been there, done that, and I'm just talking to the kids right now. We all have emotions. We all have to feel and deal. It does not make you weak. It does not mean that there's something wrong with you. You're not crazy. So just understand that you are a human being living a human experience, and your feelings are normal, and it's okay. And we want to talk to you about it, because that's going to be the healthiest way for you to cope with those emotions.
Okay. Denise? Oh, we lost our connection with Denise for right now, so she's going to get back in with us. Mallory, I'd like to go to you now for a question. So what type of resources does the school system provide, and are they well known amongst the students? I want to preface that by saying we're here in, Anne Arundel County, Maryland, and this is being broadcast all over the country and to the world. So there might be other school systems and students listening to this. So, I think Anne Arundel County Public Schools does do a good job of trying to do this, but from your perception, how are we doing as far as, getting the resources out there, and is it well known?
Right. I think that I mentioned this in my introduction, but even as someone who has met with counselors or received help from the school system and our county at large, it's surprising even to find out that certain resources are available that I didn't even know of. So I think that there is some awareness that you have a counselor that you can go to, or that there are people in the school building, if we're just talking about the school system, that you can go to or have as a trusted adult. I don't know if that awareness extends to hotlines that you could call, or other available resources that we have right at school, like school psychiatrists and other things like that. I think a lot of the time too, with school counselors, the recommended student to counselor ratio is 250 to 1. And far too often it surpasses 400 students to one counselor. So while there is awareness that you have a counselor at school that helps you in your academic advising and stuff like that, it all too often is hard to form a relationship with them. But yeah, I think that Anne Arundel County, especially in the last 2 years or so, has done a great job in at least recognizing that there needs to be an increase in funding and increase in jobs that we have for a mental health task force that was put in place, or counselors in general in our schools. So while I, feel that there needs to be more work put into that, there can always be more to be done. But I think that Anne Arundel County is doing a good job in that regard.
Denise is back with us.
Yeah, sorry.
By phone. We lost her video. But Denise, getting back to that question, what are some of the coping mechanisms that teens could use to get through these situations?
Okay, and I did not hear LaToya, so I hope I'm not, repeating. Well, I mean, some of the things are really basic, like try really hard to get good sleep and get outside in nature and get some exercise. And I think, as LaToya said, the connections are immensely important, hard to do now, but important, but really very basic. And things like trying to eat reasonably. And, these physical things are so important because we tend to, minimize those, but I think they're really, really valuable. And ironically, the social media, which we see as such a problem, is a bit positive right now because it does allow these kids to connect. And so I, as much as it isn't good, at least they are able to connect with their friends. But I really encourage people. And I think things like meditation and yoga are really important things to avail themselves of.
Okay, well, thank you. Mallory, we'd like to go to you to see if there's some questions for the panel from a teen perspective that you have.
Absolutely. So I'll first direct this to LaToya. Teens are often concerned that their friends, family, and even school staff will judge them for their internalized struggles. What would you say to someone who is questioning whether or not they should seek help?
Well, I want to say that that is normal, that it's not uncommon for us to feel some sort of embarrassment or shame, because our society tells us that we have to be tough. We have to put on this brave front and have to pretend that our lives are okay. And, that's not the case. All of us here would be lying if we didn't tell you, and I'm speaking as a professional, that we've never experienced depression. We've never experienced some sort of anxiety. We've never doubted ourselves. That would be a complete lie. So I'm just encouraging the young people to understand that your feelings are normal. We all have them, and you're not alone. It's okay to feel the way you do. And, we want to help you. We want to be able to talk to you. That's the best way, to let people know how you're feeling so they can, point you in the right direction. But we won't know. We won't know if you don't tell us. So please just let us help you.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. Thank you. Denise, do you have more thoughts on that question?
The only one is, I think sometimes what's problematic is just access to the help. I absolutely agree with LaToya. We've all been there, but helping kids find the access and find the right person. I always say the match is so important. You could have all the degrees and all the experience in the world. And I say to every client, boy, if this isn't right for you, you're not going to hurt my feelings. You're here for you, not me. And so I think understanding that you aren't expected to find a match immediately, and having ways to navigate finding the right help. That's one of the greatest problems we have in all healthcare, but particularly mental health, is access.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I really like what you said about finding a match, because I think that sometimes if you have your first bad experience sharing something and opening up and being vulnerable, it discourages you and perhaps your peers in feeling comfortable enough to share and try again. Um,
I also think it's really important to look at, getting therapy and getting help. I look at it as a tool, right? I always say to
Mhm.
parents, you would no more send your kid off to school without a pen, or, nowadays to college with the right laptop. I think self-awareness and self-understanding is so fundamental to us. And, there are a number of tools to learning that. It doesn't mean one is broken, or something is wrong with them. It's just a wonderful tool for self-awareness.
Yeah, I'm listening to Denise and I can't agree more. I mean, 100% completely agree with her because I tell clients all the time, if you meet with a therapist that you don't feel comfortable with, don't judge all therapists based on that one bad experience. It really is about finding a match. You got to keep seeking that person, and it should be a part of your overall health. I mean, I got three people on speed dial. For me, I have my PCP, my primary care doctor, my dentist, and my therapist. Okay, my therapist is just as important to me as the other folks who are treating my physical symptoms. I'm not going to wait until my teeth fall out to call my dentist. So you don't want to wait until you have a crisis before you call a mental health professional. So you just got to keep doing it. And you got to, when you schedule that physical checkup, that dental checkup, schedule that checkup from the neck up. We all need it. We all need that mental health professional on speed dial.
Absolutely. That's wonderful. And the next question, I'll start with Denise for this one. In the students or teens that you've worked with, what would you say to them if they were contemplating whether or not they had a mental illness, or if they should seek help? How can a student know whether or not they have mental illness?
Well, I'm always really cautious about, again, sort of this notion of mental illness, right? That somehow something is really, it's along with those things that I dislike the word normal, right? I'm not sure what normal is. I used to be a mathematician, so I like to think about things in terms of within 3 standard deviations of the mean. And so I think the question is not, am I ill? Am I sick? But am I not functioning as my best self? And
Mhm.
what might be standing in the way, not just of being happy, but of being productive, of being able to connect, of being able to sleep, of being able to accomplish the things that are appropriate for our developmental phase. And if we're feeling like that's not happening, then we should seek help, not to see if we're broken, but to see how we might facilitate, being in touch with ourselves and being in touch with how to be as aware and productive. And I get nervous not only about the word normal, mental illness, but also about happy, because that's always a loaded word. Because we can't be happy all the time, but we should be able to find contentment and find joy and be able to feel the entire range of feelings and access them and express them, and be able to connect. And so I would pose the question, not so much do I have a mental illness or not, but am I not functioning in a way that brings me the opportunity to be productive and joyful and connected.
Thank you so much. And we'll go to Latoya now. How can a student know whether or not they have a mental illness?
Yeah, I agree again with what Denise said. What I would add to that is that, a teenager may want to ask themselves, okay, is this normal behavior for me? I mean, they kind of know what's normal for them and what's not normal for them. So they may want to ask themselves that question. They may also want to think about, is what I'm feeling affecting my day-to-day activities? Am I not functioning to, a level that's normal for me? Because of my feelings. Do these problems happen often? Am I feeling more crappy than I am good? Then that's an indicator that there may be something going on. Also, is it lasting for a long period of time? Am I going 2 weeks now where I don't want to get out of bed? I don't want to talk to people. I'm feeling more irritable and anxious. So, it's just really kind of being a little aware of what's your baseline or what's normal for you. And then, kind of judging, am I off or do I need help? But from a professional perspective, if I'm looking at what would make a teenager vulnerable, I would want to know their genetics. I want to know their family history. Are they vulnerable to mental illness? Is there a family history of schizophrenia, bipolar, or, depression? Also, I would like to know what stressors they have. You don't know. I mean, if a kid is living in a home with an alcoholic parent or someone who has an untreated mental illness, then yes, they're going to be at high risk for mental health issues, or maybe even substance use issues themselves. And just being aware, I would like to know what adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, if you're not familiar with them. But what ACEs are they experiencing that would make them susceptible to developing mental health issues?
Thank you so much. And I like how you described, what's your baseline, what's your normal, and seeing when it doesn't feel right to you. That's great and a good indicator. So last question, and I'll start with Denise again. So it's good to hear some good news, especially nowadays. And I think we can all agree that mental health awareness is certainly doing very well. We're all trying to make that awareness better for everyone. In what ways have you seen that awareness advance in a positive direction? And also, what work do you think can still be done?
Awareness, I do see, particularly since teens are, again, social media can be helpful in this regard. They are talking to one another a little more about this. I do see my clients are actually able to share with friends, and they aren't nearly as concerned about sharing that as was in the past when I started. So I think the awareness is certainly at a peer level. Unfortunately, not everywhere, but I am finding that a lot of parents are a little more aware and willing to seek help for their kids than used to be in the past. So I find those both helpful aspects of it.
Thank you so much. And LaToya?
I just want to say that I love this generation. I absolutely love this generation because they are very outspoken. They are very vocal. If there is an issue or a cause, they will jump up and they will say, this isn't right. I feel like, because they are so, just open about, their feelings and what's going on for the most part, that this is just an amazing thing. So I love that they are the way they are, but yeah, just being straightforward and talking about what it is that's bothering you, and just that heightened awareness that they have about their environment, what's going on around them. Mental health is not what it was when I was growing up. I'm from a culture where, we pray it away. Jesus will take it away. That was how we were raised. We never talked about mental health. That was for crazy people. But I just love the acceptance of it. I love that we are now in tune with who we are, the environment we're living in, and this is the time to fix it. This is the time to fix it, and the help is available.
Thank you so much.
We actually have some great questions from the outside. The text line is open. We encourage you to text us your questions. We got some good ones already. The number is 443-579-5596. The first question, we're going to go toward LaToya to start off with. As a teen, how can I support my friends who need help but don't want it? And on top of that, LaToya, because I've heard this before, is, when do you help your friend? Like if a friend starts saying they're going to hurt themselves or something, when do you go to an adult if they won't listen to you for help? I guess so that the outside question was, how can I support my friends who don't want it? But then on top of that, what's some things they could do?
Yeah, and I think it's great that this question is being asked, because I'm glad that you want to help your friend, or you're at least considering it and want to know how to go about doing it. I guess it would depend on the severity of the situation. Okay. So if your friend is saying that they're sad, that they're really feeling down, and, they're saying this and it's becoming more and more common that they're saying this, I usually tell teens that, why don't you talk to your friend, but let them know that you think it would be in their best interest to tell their parent. And if you don't tell your parent, I will. And just kind of give them the heads up. Don't ambush your friend, but just say to them, look, I care about you. I'm worried about you. You've been saying this an awful lot. If you don't say anything in the next 2 days, I'm just throwing that out there, I'm going to say something for you because I care. So you don't want to be confrontational. I call it carefrontational. You want to do it in a carefrontational way. But if your friend is expressing thoughts of suicide, either hurting themselves or someone else, there's no hesitation there. You want to act immediately. That is a crisis situation. You want to go to the first available adult, whether it be your parent, whether it be their parent, any trusting adult you can go to, and just make sure that you're getting your friend help immediately.
Denise, anything to add?
I just wanted to add, I absolutely agree. But what I see, and as I'm sure you have, LaToya, is sometimes kids don't have parents they can approach. And so in that case, it gets more complicated. And now that we're not even the kids aren't even in school, it's even more complicated, because oftentimes kids could go to the school counselor, or they could go to a coach, or they could, whatever, and sometimes maneuver, things that way. But I know kids have felt like they don't have parents to go to. And so now I really am finding it a loss, because where do they go? And that really becomes difficult, because it used to be they would often go to coaches, and that would sort of maneuver the system. So I'm really worried now about that avenue.
Mm-hmm.
And Mallory, have you ever been in that situation, or you have any advice for that? Or
Absolutely. I think fewer times has it been serious enough, like LaToya mentioned, where there's no hesitation, or you immediately feel as though urgent response is necessary. But yeah, there are certainly all the time you will have friends or family members even, where you feel that it is necessary for them to at least have a check-in with them, and in a very careful way, because I think that if you try to be too much of a dictator or seem like you know more than they know about their own issues, that can be incredibly intimidating and incredibly hurtful to someone who is hurting more than they know how to describe. So absolutely, it's certainly hard, especially when it is very intense and a real crisis that you feel needs to be addressed. But just like our specialists described, come from it at a careful angle, and one that you're really looking out for them and not just trying to be in the right or do the right thing, but to really take care of them is what comes first.
Great. Next question. We'll start with Denise on this one. How can we increase access for teens whose parents don't support therapy and medications?
Increase access, is that what the question is?
Yeah,
again,
seeking help, basically.
Yeah, and that brings us again to that place of what is the avenue, especially if a kid is under 18. If they're under 18, they can seek help. But if they're not, they need their parents' permission. And so part of it is, if you can talk to the teen about, how do you go to your parent? I mean, how might you, if I could learn a little bit about what the parents are like, to talk to them about how to talk to them and how to express it, so that it's not dismissed or diminished. I find part of the problem is just our healthcare system, right? Because these kids cannot access this on their own. And so I am finding that really hard, especially now in the absence of school professionals, which are sort of first line. As far as medication, that one is always, a sticky one, because I don't think it's a first line of defense, and I don't think it should be, but I think it can be incredibly helpful. And I really, when there's pushback, I totally respect that. And I really speak to how I understand that reluctance. And really, I think it's important for people to be very educated about the medications people are talking about. You know, they really need to understand how they work and what is the impact and what is the risk and what is the value, and not, you know, not sort of have it be a mystery. But again, it's a much bigger, you know, issue than here is access to care.
Latoya?
Yeah, I agree with Denise. You know, I am not a big fan of, you know, first line of defense. Let's you know, find the medication and prescribe. You know, I would rather, you know, find out what coping skills they have, kind of build onto that, you know, teach strategies to manage their symptoms before resorting to a medication. And it is difficult, you know, having access to providers, especially when the parents are reluctant to treatment. A couple of things I can mention is that, you know, Anne Arundel is amazing. You know, we are like the trailblazers when it comes to access. I think we have a better system. It's not the best, but we have a better system than other jurisdictions in Maryland. But there's the crisis warm line, and I know that resource will be shared later, but that's a resource that's available 24 hours, 7 days a week. It doesn't have to be a crisis. It just has to be a situation where you just need someone to talk to, and that's available at no cost. They're also in the schools right now, really doesn't apply, but there's a new program where the school system has partnered with Anne Arundel County Department of Health. It's called the STAR program, I believe, but they have a platform set up in the schools where the kids can log in by computer and talk with the clinician right away. Our schools also have outsourced clinical services. So they have some providers, I know Villa Maria, quite a few providers who actually come into the schools to provide those services. But there are also online support groups, and I believe it's the Mental Health America. They have online peer support groups that they can log in and just talk with, you know, folks about their feelings and just get some peer-to-peer support online.
Okay, great. The next question is a long one, but many teens undergo stress and experience depression due to the overload of schoolwork. Unfortunately, some of the teachers do not listen and continue to assign large amounts of homework that we can't handle. What are some ways to tackle all the work while maintaining a healthy mindset?
I can take that one first. I think that in high school and all grade levels, of course, but in my memories of high school, I took several AP classes and had great teachers to help along the way. But there are often obstacles where you want to challenge yourself, but it becomes all too much all at once. I know, especially when you are involved in outside school activities, extracurriculars, anything like that, that not only you have homework, but also all of that on top of it. It can be incredibly hard to manage, especially when you have people telling you to have good time management, but not often having the understanding like coping mechanisms for that. Something that really helped me along the way was getting good sleep. I would make sure that I would come home, and it's impossible to do this every day, but really try to get the work done that I could before I had a rehearsal at school or something that I knew I had at night, so that when it hit, 10 or 11, I was in bed ready to go to sleep. And that really, really helped, having that rest time, not only for my physical health, but for my mental health as well. When you're exhausted and tired from a long day, going into the next day with that same mentality and exhaustion is not going to help whatsoever. So it's definitely frustrating when you are assigned more work than you feel like you can handle. But in a few years of having that experience and a lot of stress that I underwent and my friends underwent as well, I know that it is so possible, and that you are more than capable of doing the same and getting that done in some shape or form. But also don't blame yourself if it becomes too much. and don't blame yourself for telling someone that, including your teachers. And if they're not understanding, they should be. And I hope that you find help in that area.
LaToya or Denise, anything to add?
I guess what I would also add to that is sort of asking. I often have students ask themselves, what workload am I, how much do I want to take on? And, I mean, you'll get someone who want to take 5 and 6 AP classes. And at one level, that is awesome. But at the other level, it's like, let's ask ourselves why. And is that necessary? And what is the longer goal? And how do you achieve balance? And what is your own personal sort of ability to balance things out? And what do you have to give up? And what are you willing to give up? So I think it's a bigger sort of assessment of your lifestyle and of what you're hoping to look at down the road to determine how much you want to take on. Knowing that there are going to be classes and teachers that are going to be more reasonable and ones that aren't. But again, it's about assessing why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's too much sort of, you just do it, right? You take 5 AP classes and you get the lead in the school play, and you were a starter on lacrosse, and, all of these things. And it's like, I have to ask myself, why am I doing this? And what are the things that are most important to me from a personal contentment point of view, and from where I want to be down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I mean, what is the purpose? What is the goal? And sometimes when I hear the kids' workloads, I get overwhelmed. I'm like, geez, why are you doing so much? Who are you trying to impress? Who are you comparing yourself to here? I mean, is that necessary? But it depends. I mean, if you can manage it, fine. But if it's something that's causing you, anxiety and depression and excessive worry, and you can't function, then you may want to reevaluate your schedule. But for me as a parent, I'm thankful to have kids. They appear to be well adjusted. I hope they're okay. They seem to be okay. They excel in school. They're involved in sports. But the one thing that I focus on with them, I don't ask them a whole lot, what do you want to be when you grow up? I ask them, who do you want to be when you grow up? Do you want to be happy? Do you want to be balanced? Don't you want to have passion? What do you envision? What do you close your eyes and see? And if more parents can just connect with their kids in that way and not focus on what do you want to be, what college you want to go to, what sport do you want to play, who do you want to be? Are you happy? Just ask your kids, are they happy? What makes them happy? What do you know about your kid besides all of the AP courses that they're taking and everything that we brag to our friends about? I brag about my kids, but I'm also proud that they're happy, well-adjusted people. And that's more important to me as a mother.
I'd like to piggyback off of what LaToya said. That was wonderful, especially about, who do you want to be, not what do you want to be. And I think that growing up in a positive home environment where you come home from school, and I know if I had a really hard day, even before my parents knew that, and they said to me, not, well, what are you going to get done now? What homework are you going to get done? Can you do all of these things on a laundry list that is good and will come, but also, how are you? Like, proud of you for going out today and doing what you did, no matter if it was successful or not. So those positive reinforcements, along with still living life in ways that we have to keep moving. But having that, happy focus is really important. I like what you said a lot.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's some great answers, you guys. That's awesome. We're going to throw some love to the parents here. There is it sounds like a parent question. How does a parent support their child with social media? We'll start with Mallory on this one.
That's a great question. I grew up on social media. I can't remember a time in middle school or high school without it. So, I think I got Instagram in 6th grade, and since then have had an online presence, and there is a lot of good and a lot of hardship that has come with that along the way. You're growing up online and finding yourself publicly. That's kind of hard to do, but from a parent perspective, I think, monitoring in a way that's not helicopter parenting and tracking, unless you deem that necessary. But I think it's hard when you're already having that much comparison or expectations that you're trying to achieve yourself as a teen. Having that come from parents as well is sometimes hard, but monitor in a way that is making sure that what they're posting is safe and positive, and checking up on them. I think that cyberbullying as well might not be what we immediately think it is, but little bits and pieces here and there that are hidden sometimes, but people can get really hateful or mean comments, or navigating social media as a preteen, let alone teenager, is hard. So maybe sitting down and working through with them, what your purpose is in posting something, why are you doing it, and make sure that their online presence is positive. But it's a really hard thing. I know I was kind of going back and forth there, but having, some monitoring, but also just a lot more support. If they come with something they posted that they regret, don't place blame, just figure out how to help and go from there. So yeah.
I want to say that my daughter and I are social media friends. And I want to say, I think I'm a cool mom. So, but, I think for us, it's allowed us to really connect and have real conversations. And I think that it's been a blessing. We laugh at memes, but we also talk about what's going on in the world. We had a conversation because there's so much going on around the protests. We had a conversation recently where I had to really get her back in touch with her reality. Have you ever been mistreated by anyone who didn't look like you? The answer was no. Have you ever had a police officer mistreat you? The answer was no. These are the conversations that we're having because this is what she's seeing on social media, and I have to bring myself to have these difficult conversations. To just recently, just telling her, all Black people aren't criminals, all white people aren't racist, and all police officers are not murderers. So these are the conversations that I think we have an advantage with social media to connect with our kids, first know what they're seeing, what they're being exposed to, and having the conversations around them so they hear from you firsthand as the parent, rather than being influenced by their peers and what social media is trying to convince them of.
Yeah, and it's awesome that you have that dialogue with your kids, because I oftentimes see that there are a lot of teens who are living lives off the radar, right? I mean, they are having completely, alternate experiences that their parents are totally unaware of. Mm-hmm. And so I also encourage parents, to talk to their kids about not just what are you seeing and what are you posting, but how does this make you feel? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What feelings are evoked by what you're reading or what you're posting? And, just let's talk about the feelings. Let's talk about, and how does it make you feel better as a person? Does it make you feel like you've contributed something? So I think it's important to talk about the content, but also what the feeling is that it evokes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's great answers. The next question I'm going to ask, LaToya, you answered this a little bit earlier, but it's probably, there's a bigger answer to this. What are some of the things that could be done to maintain teen mental health in light of the fact that schools may be remote in the fall?
Yeah, and we have to get creative, and I had mentioned the 3 C's earlier. Finding creative ways to connect with people. Like us doing these Zoom meetings. Having virtual parties with people. Having conversations with family members, with your support network. Finding that support network, reaching out to them regularly. And also just having some sort of community connectedness as best as you can in this trying time. But I think it's really about staying connected in anything that's positive and that's going to reinforce good feelings in us as best as possible.
Yeah, I agree. I think also it remains to be seen because it's just a huge burden on the schools to try and not only see how they are going to provide literally the learning piece, but how all these other things that schools have been tasked with. How is that going to be managed, or is that stuff going to fall off the wayside, or is there going to be some avenue for some of the same people who were resources in the schools before to be resources online?
Yeah,
And
I think
my kids are older, so you know, they were sort of the pre-social media generation, but
yeah, I think those are some great points. I mean, Latoya, I think, and Denise, like as far as connectivity, I'm thinking even like FaceTime and stuff. You know, my mother's 96, so we're having a hard time getting her to FaceTime, but I think for my kids and stuff, it would be great. So I think there is a lot of things you could try to do. I think parents could help their kids to make sure they can get connected with their family and their close friends. So there is things they could do. Mallory, there's a question for you, and it'll be interesting answer here. How does social media positively impact mental health?
There are so many ways. You know, we talked about community and finding community. I found a lot of community online, ways to advocate and ways to learn. There have been great social media initiatives in mental health awareness. A great group of young women at Severna Park High School that created Our Minds Matter, which was an organization responsible for many of the funding increases and the mental health task force in our school system. And that started and sparked on social media. So that's how awareness spreads first to my peer group and then outward as we take it to the public. So social media is wonderful, especially in checking up on one another, those that use social media for good. You stay connected in ways that are unlike any other and can really be positive. And I have seen a lot more good than bad on social media. And I think it sometimes gets a bad rep for, you know, it takes us away from connectivity. And that may be true in a interpersonal way, but in keeping in touch with friends, it's absolutely, it's a great thing. So as much as it's been weird growing up on it, it's also been an incredible tool to keep in touch with friends and make sure we're all doing well.
Terrific. The next question is, how should we go about overcoming the stigma around mental health? And we talked about this a little bit earlier, because I know in my generation, there was a lot more stigma. I think this generation is a lot more open about it, but I'll be interested to see what the panel thinks on that. How do we get overcoming the stigma?
Well, I think one of the beginnings is, as we talked about before, and so did Latoya, like who she keeps on speed dial, is that we need to look at our mental health as just as important as the rest of our health. And if we can talk about that in a check-in maintenance, that it is critical to really pay attention to part of that health, that when it needs some help, then it won't be as stigmatized, right? It's like we get, like, I think a great point. We go to the dentist. Nobody's going to stigmatize us if we wind up with a cavity. And so I think it's incredibly important to put a greater and growing emphasis on health and wellness. And how do we use our strengths? And how do we look at all the things that will help us stay mentally healthy? And so when there is a problem, it's just okay. It's like, you know, these other things, we have to address those because none of us stay 100% healthy in our entire lifespan. So I think focusing on the health and wellness, so that when we know it's not healthy and well, we can address it.
Mm-hmm.
Latoya or Mallory, anything to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that again, you know, we have to just you know, a lot of times we need to just be open and say, hey, you know, I have a therapist. And as soon as you tell someone that you have a therapist, all of a sudden, oh yeah, I've thought about it, or I have a therapist too. So if we just feel more comfortable having it and just not, feel so, that, people are going to be judging us. I think that just starting the conversation helps. And the truth is, for me, maybe I'm biased because I am a therapist, but my head is connected to my body. What makes you think your head won't get sick? Your body gets sick. So what makes you think that your head won't get sick? So I just, for me, I guess, because I'm in this field, I don't see it as a stigma. I don't see it as anything wrong. I feel like I'm much happier since I've been in therapy since my late teens, early 20s. Thank God for the social work program that forced me to go into therapy for a homework assignment. It was the best thing for me. But, those are the things that we just got to just start talking about, feeling comfortable talking about it, having those crucial conversations that we try to tiptoe around. Let's just be open and honest with one another. That's how we help each other and support each other.
I so appreciate what you said about casual conversation and saying, oh, well, when I was talking with my therapist the other day, or whatever it may be, I've made a lot of connections with people by either doing that or hearing that from them. And you immediately open up that floodgate of feeling comfortable with each other and, opening up about things that are otherwise hard to talk about. So I think if we, it's a hard subject to talk about, but it doesn't have to be. So I think keeping it casual while still careful and with good intent can be a really, really great thing.
Terrific. Next question is, what if my child refuses to see a psychologist, counselor, or social worker?
Well, I must say that one of the first things I always have parents say is acknowledge to their kids that they can't make them do anything, right? I think it's really important for it not to become a control battle, because you have to acknowledge, I can't make you do this, but I am trying to give you every tool possible. I'm also going to try and make it as difficult as possible for you to make some choices that are devastating. And so this is one tool to do that. I often suggest they say, look, you don't have to like the person. You don't have to go this. I'm asking you to do this twice. You need to go and do this twice and see how that feels. And talk to them about, if we're really, going to keep moving forward with increased responsibilities and independence and adult privileges, then we need to have all the tools to do that. And so one of the tools, so that we are all in agreement as to how to make best choices, is therapy. And I find often they'll buy into it to twice, right? Because they see they can get out. Mm-hmm. So.
It's like that motivational interview. You just have to say, okay, well, what harm will it do if you don't do it? Or, how do you think it could help you? What can we do to get your parents off your back? Let's just kind of, do this one session and see how it works out, kind of dangle the carrot in front of their face. But yeah, I mean, I would be curious to know why. If my kid were to come to me and say, I don't want to do therapy, well, what are your concerns? What is it that you don't want it for? Why not? I mean, that would be my question. But just also just telling them, hopefully they trust their parent. I would hope my kids would trust me enough to know that I wouldn't do anything to harm them, and I'm doing this for their well-being and their benefit, and just be open-minded to it. But I would encourage it. But again, like Denise said, you can't force them.
And I think maybe remind them too that they're not sending them off because they think that they're a lost case or lost cause. I think that it's going to send them to someone who, as a parent, recognize that I can only help you so much, but if we meet a specialist who knows really well what you may be going through and how to help, and that might be a much better avenue. And I think it can be scary with stigma for a lot of teens if they've never imagined themselves being in that position or in that chair in a therapist's office. But yeah, just reinforce the idea that it's a really good thing, and it's not something that you are going to or that we're suggesting for you because we think that you are sick or you are bad. It's because you deserve that help.
Mm-hmm. I just want to just add something here that it was funny to me, but I had a kid tell me once, he said, you know, Miss Latoya, talking to you sometimes feels like taking a good poop. And I laughed when he said it. I said, you know what? I've never heard it put that way, but I can see where you can get emotionally constipated and how therapy can release those icky feelings. So I get it. And it was just hilarious to me. But, you know, that just stuck in my mind because a lot of kids don't realize how emotionally constipated they are. And they just need to take a good emotional poop. So.
That's great.
I got to tell you, Latoya, that was awesome. I could totally understand that.
Right.
The next question is, what if counseling does not help me? Denise or Latoya, want to start with that one?
Well, I guess when I ask this all the time anyway, because I think it's so important for people to feel like they're, you know, getting something from this process, is to say, well, what would help look like? How would you know if you were helped? What is it that you want this process to do for you? You know, and totally open-ended about that question, because sometimes the desire is unrealistic, but that's okay. I think it's really important to understand, what is it you want it to do? And what are you looking to, what is this going to look like? How will you know if you're helped? And so that's sort of my first question to that one, because I don't, for each person, it looks differently, right? I always say to people, if you want me to remake who you are, you got the wrong person, because I not only can't do that, I don't want to do that, and neither should you. But we should talk about what help looks like. And, you know, how it, you know, it's kind of like going to a hairdresser and telling them you want to look like whomever, and they're thinking, oh my God, I can cut your hair, but that's it. So I think it's important to really understand what they want.
Latoya, anything to add?
What? My hairdresser makes me look like Beyonce. I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I've stopped going to mine because she won't.
No, I completely agree with what Denise said. You know, it's really about, you know, building on their strengths. It's about, you know, making them the best version of themselves. We are not miracle workers. You know, we're social workers, and, you know, we just want to support them in being the best healthy version of themselves.
Okay. The next question is how does anxiety/depression affect males versus female teens?
Okay.
So Latoya, you want to start with that one?
Yeah, definitely. You know, in males, what we see often in the teenage years is conduct disorder, you know, some irritability, some anger, you know, more aggressive type behaviors. In girls, I often see more of the like emotional, the isolation, you know, maybe making comparisons to other people, crying, you know, just kind of like that, what we would call like dramatic types of behaviors. But you know, those are all, you know, it's important for us to understand how depression manifests in folks, whether it be your gender, whether it be your race, whether it be your age. There are different symptoms, a cluster of symptoms, depending on, you know, those factors. And we do, as therapists, we need to be aware of that, you know, culturally, gender, you know, age. But those are some of the more common symptoms that I see in male versus female.
I think that's absolutely. And I think there's a difference in how and willingness to seek help along all those lines as well. You know, a variety of demographics. You know, I think that particularly in adult males, adults particularly, much less willingness to seek, you know, help. I think that's changing, but I see girls are much more willing to do that. So it's not only does it present differently, the openness to help and the nature of the help is different along all these demographic lines.
Do you guys find that there's a difference, like in the treatment options of male versus female? Like, when they come into the office and you're talking to them for the first time, when you're developing your treatment plan, is it a little bit different for a male treatment plan versus a female treatment plan?
I don't know that the end goal, I think that's all very individualized and the issues are very individualized. I think the process can be a little bit different. It's mostly individual. I find some of the gender things exist. How in touch with feelings, how much that's been encouraged, how verbal, how expressive, and how that was encouraged in a family along gender lines. I think there are some differences, but I think each person is so individual.
Mhm.
Okay, LaToya, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, we all have our outlets. What works for one person may not work for another. But for me, I always like to ask people, when you were your healthiest or happiest, what were you doing? What did your life look like? And I like to bring them back to what works for them in the past, because we all have coping skills. Sometimes we just lose them when we're overwhelmed or when we're, stressed or depressed even. So no, I don't really see much of a difference. I think for me, I have an advantage because I'm in a group practice. So I have staff of all ages, races, genders. So I try to match the client with the therapist I think that they can most relate to. And, just to keep them engaged and keep them coming back and, being committed to the process.
All right, the next question, we're going to start with Mallory. How do you ensure continued growth and improvement of your mental health over time?
I think that staying with your treatment, I think when I started therapy 5 years ago, I certainly needed it, once a week. And then we kind of went to once every 2 weeks, and gradually did not meet as frequently, but still staying in touch with your resources. And I still meet with my therapist every now and then and still schedule somewhat regular appointments, even if I don't know going into a session what I'm going to talk about. Or maybe I had a great week or great month, whatever it may be. Still going in and talking, I always find something or some relief that I get off my chest when I leave that office. So I think sticking with it, even when you think you may be at your best, which is certainly something to celebrate, continue advocating for yourself and still recognizing that it will get tough again when you least expect it. And that's not a bad thing, but just to keep with it, keep talking, whether it's to a doctor or to your family and friends. Stay as open as you can. Other things, besides just treatment that I try to do for myself is writing. I write in a journal, which is super helpful, and I don't always find the motivation to do it, but when I do, it's a great tool. I try to monitor screen time, but I also do find, especially during quarantine, a lot of joy in connecting with the use of my phone, but getting outside and hanging out with friends when possible and when safe is super, super important to me. And I think everyone's case is an individual case, like we were talking about earlier. So the things that help and support me may not be the same for somebody else. Someone may need to isolate or take a break, whereas I recharge by seeing people. So it's different for every single person, but my biggest advice and what's helped me in the last 5 years of my mental health journey is just sticking with it and recognizing that there's nothing wrong with having someone to talk to for the rest of your life. It doesn't have to have an end date.
Anything on LaToya or Denise wants to add to that?
I think that's really pretty much says it all. I just sort of suggest people that we all just have check-ins with ourselves, right? Many years ago, the mayor of New York, Mayor Koch, used to walk around the city looking up and yelling at people, "How am I doing?" And I always say, we need to do that with ourselves. How am I doing? Right? And that, I think, is part of the maintenance.
Mhm. I would say that, as a parent, I have to be, I look at it as when you're on an airplane, everybody knows this analogy, in case of an emergency, you put the mask on yourself before saving someone else. And I feel like for me, I have to put the mask on myself. I have to take care of myself, because when I take care of myself, I'm a better wife, I'm a better mother, I'm a better therapist. And I tell people all the time, when you go into a therapist's office, ask your therapist if he or she has a therapist, because there's no way, I'm not convinced that any therapist can take on other people's issues and deal with their own personal stuff and be okay. It's just humanly impossible for me. But for me, therapy is key. Mallory mentioned journaling. I journal and I do Zumba. I take walks. I mean, these are things that I do for my own wellness, yay, Mallory. But my wellness is important to me. I can't help other people if I'm not helping myself. And I make myself a priority, and I'm very selfish in that way. And I feel like more people need to be selfish with their own health and happiness, because other people will reap the rewards. And it's okay to put yourself first.
Okay. Next, we're gonna, how do you recommend a kid talk to their parents about their mental health when their parents don't believe in mental health issues? That's in parentheses, don't believe in mental health issues. We'll start with you, Denise.
Yeah, I think we sort of touched on that before in terms of learning a little bit about why do they not believe in mental health issues? Is that because perhaps they themselves had a problem with mental health, or they came from a family that did, in which case it's a bit traumatic, can be part of it. I think that perhaps approaching and saying, look, it's not about, you don't even need to talk about it in terms of, and once again, illness, but in terms of tools. I feel like I'm just not my best self. And I really want to grow up to be, resilient. I love to use resilience as a framework, and say I'm not snapping back as quickly. I'm not sleeping as well, and or even approach and say, maybe I need to go to my doctor, my primary care. And that may be an avenue, because I'm fine. And many of the ones I work with are awesome. They are very well informed about mental health issues and very supportive. And so sometimes that's an avenue, is to approach a parent and say, maybe there's something else going on. Can I at least make an appointment with my doctor? Because sometimes parents will listen to the pediatrician or the physician. And so I sometimes will use that as an avenue.
Yeah, I agree, Denise. The parents are maybe more receptive from hearing it from another professional, or a professional rather than the kid. But what I would suggest for a kid to do is maybe, take mental health off the table. Don't use that language. Maybe, because parents are human beings. If they don't believe in mental health, they believe in emotions. They believe in feelings. We all have them. They're universal. And it may be, for me, I like to connect with people based on their personal experiences. So I may say, Mom, remember how you felt when Grandma died? You remember how sad you felt, or something, just to evoke some emotion in that person, just for that person to kind of feel and maybe have empathy for what you're feeling. You remember how sad you were, or when you lost your job, or when Dad left, or something. I'm feeling something similar to that right now. And I feel like I need someone to talk to. But, using other people's experience just to create some empathy and evoke emotion in them and remind them that they too once felt that way, use that approach rather than, saying, I need a mental health professional.
Yeah. And I think too, I think that's really important, because they can relate to that. And also I find sometimes parents really feel it's their fault. And so it's not allowed to be a problem, because therefore they assume it's their fault and they must fix it, and they don't know how to fix it. So I think absolutely approaching it from a, gee, I just don't know why I'm struggling, and do you remember how you felt, takes it from a fault place. Because I think parents you're not allowed that, because we're not allowed to fail you at something we don't know how to fix.
In the interest of time, we're trying to respect everybody's evening. I have a couple individual questions I'm going to ask each panelist. First, I want to start with LaToya. Can my primary care provider and therapist collaborate to help me?
Absolutely. Yep. As long as there's a release of information signed and we have permission to communicate back and forth, absolutely. The answer is yes.
And do you encourage that? Is that helpful, do you think?
I think a collaborative effort is always ideal. As many providers who are, part of this treatment team, the better. And the communication makes it more effective.
And then for Denise, when should patients resort to medication as treatment for depression?
Well, that again is an individual basis. So I'm going to put that on a, contingent on what's going on. I, as LaToya said earlier too, I like to see what's possible first. I think if people really aren't improving, if they are really having extremely dark thoughts, if this is persisting, then I think it's important to have a medication evaluation, because then they're in a better position to utilize the other skills that are therapeutic, right? Because sometimes people are in a place where, you can suggest all the best things in the world, but they literally are in a place where they can't use those things. They can't get themselves out and moving around. They can't. And so I fortunately have several really great people who will do these evaluations and look at that and work in concert, that it has to be therapy and medication, because we know from research that combination is the most effective. And sort of look at what is the nature of this depression, because sometimes it's depression and anxiety, or sometimes it's really overwhelming anxiety that causes the depression. And so that distinction about what medication is critical. And so I think that is really an important thing, to have somebody excellent who knows how to evaluate this.
Terrific. Good answer. We're going to start with our closing comments. I'd like to start with Mallory for your closing comment.
Thank you so much to Dr. Broussard and the entire team for this Teen Mental Health Night. I've had such a pleasure being on this panel and meeting LaToya and Denise in a virtual setting. It's been an honor. And I want to applaud everyone that came on this live stream to watch it, whether you are someone who is seeking help yourself, seeking help for a friend or a child of yours, or if you're just interested in the subject. It's always great to learn more. I myself learn every day, even if I sit here and act like I know what I'm talking about. Sometimes I don't, and it's still a learning process, and really, really important to continue to talk and continue to have conversations. So thank you so much to everyone on this team, and I look forward to returning hopefully soon.
Thank you very much. LaToya?
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. I can't believe we're at the end here. This has been wonderful. I've enjoyed listening to Mallory and Denise. I just want to thank you all for allowing me to be a part of this conversation. I just want to encourage parents to, familiarize yourself with adverse childhood experiences. I really want you to look at this screening tool. You can Google it, but it's an ACE questionnaire. But become familiar with it, so that way you know what those markers are. If your kid is experiencing these adverse childhood experiences, it can set them up for long-term mental health and addiction disorder. So please familiarize yourself with that. Do your best to provide a safe home and safe community for your kids. Promote a trusting relationship, a respectful relationship with your kids. Listen to them. Spend regular time with them, but more importantly, set a good example for your kids. And, because they're looking at you and your problem solving, your decision making, your coping skills, and be the example that they need to be healthy and well.
Great. Thank you. Denise?
I too want to thank everyone. This has been awesome. I always learn so much. I remember January's panel was just so great. And I would like to, I echo everything everyone said, but I also would like to suggest that we all, those listening, all of us, continue in our daily work in our community of talking about these things, of making it part of our life, that it is nothing to be stigmatized. And, I think it's really important that we, talk to people and they talk to people and understand that this is something we all need to keep our eyes and ears out about, because there are people who are struggling and no one's looking at them. So we need to ask people that we care about, how are you? So thank you.
Well, I got to tell you guys, this has been an excellent evening. I've learned a lot from this. Your passion and your expertise it came out. I think knowing that there's people like LaToya and Denise out there helping people is awesome. I think the future generations with the Mallory Snodgrasses out there, we're in good hands. I think, Mallory did a great job, very articulate and very thoughtful in your thoughts. So I thought it was just awesome, presentation by all three of you guys. I think we all learned something, and I think it's very important. So I'd like to thank the three of you in particular for giving this part of your evening and imparting knowledge on us, because that's what this is all about, is learning and communicating. We'd also like to thank some of the other people involved, Alderman Rhonda Pindle-Charles from the city of Annapolis and Annapolis Public School System, Ellis Atlantis, the Severna Park Voice, Zach Sparks, the Pasadena Voice Media Division, Ryan Davis, our chairman of our Teen Mental Health Night Planning Committee, Nick Nazario and Kylie Broussard for their technical expertise, and Delaney Broussard for her social media expertise. In addition, Dr. Sherry Perkins, who's the CEO of Anne Arundel Medical Center / Loomis Health, has been very supportive of this. If you missed any of the portions of this or want to see the whole thing again, we are putting it on YouTube. You could either search for it on YouTube or go to our website and you'll be able to find it there, or tell your friends and family. I think this was so informative. I think this is something, you want to tell people to go back and watch. I think Paxton Pagnelli, who founded the Future Doctors Group and the FHHMO organization, is a big part of this. He has been behind the scenes, but he founded this organization in 2012. He has been one of the technical directors on this and has really been an awesome mentor for all these students for this. He started this in 2012, and just like with Mallory, I feel like this next generation has us in good hands. I feel Paxton also and Ryan and that whole group has us in good hands. So thank you very much. Stay safe and be kind, and look for our next one. We hope to do another one of these later this fall. Similar topic or maybe a little bit different, but just follow us and we will provide you some more knowledge. Thank you very much and have a good evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.